Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and good evening or afternoon, or I think I saw someone in India, so good morning in India. My name is Alyssa Irizarry, and I'm the Senior Vice President at Biondo Ocean Awareness Programs, and I'm really thrilled to welcome you to our November Water Wednesdays webinar. I'm sure this will be a very inspiring conversation about the power of public art to engage communities around issues that are facing our ocean. And as I said earlier, as you're settling in, getting a glass of water, please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat and where you're zooming in from. And if you also want to share a body of water that is local or significant to you, we would love to hear that as well. So take a moment to introduce yourself to the group. And this webinar, I do want to say this webinar is being recorded. So if you want to share it with a friend or colleague or class after the event, we will be posting the recording on our website and emailing it to all of you as well. So this webinar is the second in our monthly series that kicked off last month with an exploration of how watersheds connect us all to the ocean, no matter where we live. And if you're interested in watching that recording and getting to know your local watershed with some of the awesome visualization tools that we use, you can find that on our website, which is there at the bottom, bioseed.org/waterweb. And for those of you who are new to Water Wednesdays, this webinar series was created in conjunction with our 10th annual Ocean Awareness Art Contest, and this year's theme is Water Rising, which invites students to explore and understand their personal connection to water, and to creatively communicate the need to protect this incredibly precious resource and life-sustaining relationship. And as a little preview, I'm going to show a brief animation that was created for the contest by one of our former student artists, who now serves on our Ocean Awareness Contest Judging Committee. So the driving question behind our programming this year is, what are the stories that we need to tell about water to sustain it and conserve it for current and future generations of life on Earth? And the goal of these Water Wednesdays webinar series, or this webinar series, is to explore this question through the lenses of climate change and ecology, health, justice, and culture. And we hope that this is a space for learning, for inspiration, for conversation. And we also want to provide you with resources and opportunities to get involved and also create new connections beyond this webinar. I'm now very pleased to introduce my lovely co-host for the evening, Linda Cabot. And Linda is Bioseed's captain of our ship. She's Bioseed's founder and president, as well as an artist, a poet, a designer, and a sailor, and a longtime supporter of the arts in many, many ways. And Linda also serves on the advisory board of PangeaSeed Foundation.
Great. Well, thank you, Alyssa. And just hi, everybody, and welcome. I can't see you, but I know that there are people from all over the globe, so it's so nice to have you here. As Alyssa mentioned, I am an artist. I'm a sailor. as well. And I started seriously painting after college, and I painted mostly ocean landscapes because I felt a very strong spiritual connection to the ocean. And as a sailor, I often, when I was out on the ocean, I felt a sense of exploration, freedom, and wildness that I just never felt on the land. And many times on these sort of sailing passages, I would wonder what is below the surface of the ocean. And I got curious sort of about ocean dynamics and ocean health, and I started reading. And that's when I began to understand that the ocean is indeed, not too big to fail. And I started reading about threats and challenges that the ocean was facing, like, overfishing, pollution, climate change, acidification, and, habitat loss. Um, and so then about 10 years ago, I put these two loves together, sort of art making and ocean health, and founded BioSeed Ocean Awareness Programs as a way to teach the youth, the next generation, about the health of our ocean through a very meaningful way of participating, and that is through art making. I was really hoping at that time, and still to this day, our team is very committed to creating the next generation of ocean caretakers and ocean stewards through these programs. Alyssa mentioned in the beginning, our signature program is the contest program. And every year we have a different theme. This past year was about climate change. And what's really lovely is that these students from around the globe learn about climate change and then create something. And we have, I think it's now 6 different categories. We have visual art, music and dance, poetry, spoken word, creative writing, and now interactive media. And I think now over the years, we've given over $500,000 to student scholarships, and then also to teachers and other partners. This year, I think we got 5,300 submissions, and just yesterday we announced our winners. So if you're interested, you can go to our gallery here at bioseed.org to check those out. It's really sort of incredible. And then I was thinking about tonight and remembering when I first heard about the PangeaSeed Foundation and also seawalls. And it was about 7 years ago. I was stumbling along on Facebook and discovered your page, the PangeaSeed Foundation page, and I was just completely blown away by what the organization was doing in terms of working with these international artists and then going around the globe and creating these very impactful murals. And at some point, we started a partnership together over these years and doing different sort of partnering projects. And so here's a picture. Actually, my youngest daughter, Noelle, went to, I think this is in Napier, New Zealand, and was sort of the young student artivist. And then my oldest daughter, Gigi, spent a semester from college volunteering for PangeaSeed, which she loved. And then here's a picture of Alyssa, who has gone on 2 of these journeys and seawall activations. I think the one on the left, I think if that's right, that's New Zealand, and the one on the right is Hawaii. And then I finally got to meet Akira for the first time when we went to Mexico together to swim and look at whale sharks, which to this day is my favorite, most meaningful vacation journey I've ever been on. And I know that they have done this annual trip there. I think they're postponing it this year, but if you're ever interested, you should definitely connect with them about that. And then most recently, we have partnered with them for a seawalls activation here in Boston, in East Boston. And I would just say, I'm just so grateful for this partnership for all these years. And I'm really thrilled. We're thrilled to have Akira here tonight to join us. And I just wanted to give a little bit of a background for Akira. And she grew up in Switzerland. She was raised in a family of very creative people. Her parents are Japanese and Italian. And she is the director of operations at the PangeaSeed Foundation and a co-founder of the Seawalls Artist for Oceans program. And her passion for the environment stems from her very wide and diverse travels across the globe for many years, where she witnessed sort of how humanity has impacted the environment. And she has a background in sustainability studies and also cultural anthropology. And really importantly, she believes that protecting the blue planet for future generations really depends on this interdisciplinary approach that includes the arts, includes creative problem thinking, and then also including the voices of all the people. So thank you, Akira, for joining us and for being a real inspiration for our program all these many years. Yay.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Alyssa, for your kind words and that great introduction. I can only echo that. We are so grateful for this, multi-year-long partnership that we've really fostered, and all the different things that we've been able to do together. What I really love is that when Alyssa has joined us on projects, you've taken artworks that were submitted to you by youth and kind of reimagined them. Often in interactive ways. The one in Maui, you had students at that school where we painted at contributing to the mural as well. So I think it's just so meaningful to be able to kind of cross all of those bridges. Yeah, and as Linda said, the most recent project that we just wrapped up in East Boston, we'll be releasing that recap video very soon. So those of you who are watching, kind of be on the lookout for that. It was a really meaningful project that we were able to pull off despite all of this crazy new normal that we're all living in. But yeah, before we kind of jump into our discussion today, I'd love to share a video. It's a short film, really, about one of our past projects. The project was called Water is One. It was hosted in the city of Querétaro in Mexico. It's actually a landlocked location where we really wanted to highlight the connectivity of water from the mountains to the ocean. And as a location, as a city that is really reliant on these aquifers and these aqueducts that bring the water down from the mountains, a very arid town, we really wanted to kind of highlight that, and we wrapped a ginormous structure in murals. So I will go ahead and share this video, so you can just kind of relax, take in the video, and after that we'll jump into an engaging conversation.
Estoy muy sorprendido el día de hoy de descubrir el costo que tiene el estilo de vida que llevamos en las ciudades. El agua de Querétaro sale de aquí, sube 1 kilómetro y recorre 100 kilómetros a través de un tubo de 1 metro de diámetro. Es importante que todos contribuyamos, que todos trabajemos juntos para sostener ese estilo de vida. No es posible transformar nuestro estilo de vida de la noche a la mañana, pero tenemos que encontrar maneras de llegar a un consumo responsable, de ser conscientes de lo que implica consumir cada una de las cosas que consumimos.
We're making seawalls in Querétaro because it's the perfect place to raise awareness for water conservation. Querétaro is a very special place. It's one of the fastest growing cities in Mexico right now, and it's critical that the community is educated and updated on how they can conserve their natural resources. For a place that's located in the middle of the desert, to get water into the community is a really massive challenge. And through this project, we're aiming to connect with the community and show them how precious water is and why we need to conserve it for ourselves and for future generations.
I think art can play a really powerful role in helping people and our communities to explore issues in very different ways than they would otherwise. I think we can talk to people quite a bit about the issues, let's say environmental issues, and give them statistics and facts about what's happening. That doesn't move them to make change about that. What really moves people is their belief systems and the way they feel about things.
Lo mejor que podemos hacer es seguir intentando y a ver qué transformación podemos lograr juntos. Pero se trata mejor de intentar que no hacer nada.
Creo que más bien este es un ejercicio para nosotros como artistas, que de alguna forma nosotros tendríamos que empezar como iniciativa propia y eso transmitirlo a nuestros amigos, familiares y todo eso.
Go, take it for load, letting your wings unfold, but keeping everything down to a minimum, everything a bit low. Tell them what you know, not all that you know though. The truth be told, you needed more than you thought, but you're managing, that's how you even out.
So our mural explores the concept of the privatization of water, and in the mural we're kind of depicting different women from different backgrounds, but specifically women, indigenous women to Mexico, and a lot of it shows the different lengths at which women have to go to acquire water, from traveling long distances to like protesting and demonstrating to maintain their rights for access to clean water.
Es muy gracioso que la referencia real de esa foto es una mujer indígena tomando Coca-Cola en vez de agua. Entonces quise representar la sed que tenemos, que cada vez es como más evidente, sobre todo en zonas en donde les es robada el agua y como parece que la botella está absorbiéndola a ella y no al revés.
So for this project, we decided to title it Water is One. And it's a simple expression, but it's one that resonates, I think, with most people. There's nobody on the planet, no species can necessarily survive without water. It's the key to all life on the planet. And if it's contaminated, if it's polluted, if it's lacking, that's going to affect the way that we survive. So Water is One is somewhat of a mantra for this project and a way to connect people to the importance of it. Well, I feel that through this project we're sending a message to the world that water is incredibly important. We all have a stake in this, and it's critical that we all are working together to ensure water resources around the world are sustained and protected for ourselves and future generations.
So yeah, that was Water is One. This was a project 2 years ago, and it's probably one of the most intense and ambitious in terms of size of structure that we painted. We had to have an ambulance on standby every day. And prior to starting painting, the artists that were working on the top portion of the dome, they actually had to get specific rappelling training from professional climbers. And so before anyone could go up on a lift, they would get their blood pressure measured and all of those steps because nothing could happen to them. And luckily nothing did. But yeah, so we are here today to kind of talk about the power of art and how it connects to our ocean. So I'll hand it over back to Alyssa and Linda for now.
Yeah, Akira, do you want to pull up more images while we're talking? Great. So I want to start off with kind of your story, and you've said that your passion for the environment stems from your travels around the world and really experiencing this kind of seeing the firsthand humanity's impact on the planet. And so I'd love to hear you talk about what you've experienced that fuels your passion for this work, and particularly if you can speak to the impacts to and on water that you've experienced in your travels over the years.
Yeah, for sure. As Linda said, I grew up in Switzerland. I was born and raised there, and despite it, being a landlocked country, I ended up finding my way to the ocean. I now live in Hawaii, and I haven't been back to Europe in 6 years. But so much of my inspiration has really come from the travels that I was able to do as a kid with my family. We lived in Australia for a short stint of time when I was very young, and being able to be exposed to different cultures, different ways of living. And as I grew older and did my own independent travels, I actually ended up I think one of the most striking experiences that really kind of cemented my passion for the conservation of our oceans was a 2-month period that I spent in Borneo diving. And I was diving and I was surfacing from a dive, and I heard this very, very loud blast. And I actually for a moment thought that I was dying, or that something very bad was happening. Something very bad was happening. They were dynamite fishing while I was diving in the water, like literally next to me. And minutes later, you see all of these fish just floating to the surface. It's an extremely destructive way of fishing, but also a very effective way of fishing. It doesn't kill all the fish. It essentially just stunts them, and they float to the top. The fishermen will come, they'll scoop them up with a big net, and they'll most often actually sell those fish to the live fish markets, so like those restaurants where you can go and pick out your own fish to eat. That's from cyanide and blast fishing. And so that was one of those experiences. And then taking it back to the land, I spent a good chunk of time traversing the whole country of Mongolia and being able to kind of witness the desertification of that country and kind of how the nomadic lifestyle of the indigenous people there is eroding away as the environment changes, was very powerful as well. So those are two very different experiences, but both are equally important to me in terms of kind of cementing my passion for environmental work.
Just seeing these images is amazing. It's so impressive. And the PangeaSeed Foundation, I mean, your mission is really to give oceans a voice, and you're merging artistry with activism, which you're calling ARTivism. And I was wondering if you could just talk about that a little bit, what ARTivism means.
Yeah, for sure. I think kind of some of the pictures that you're seeing, they're a mix of, the faces behind the project, some of the activities, the work in progress, the finished murals. That very much encapsulates what ARTivism is. It is combining the art and the activism and bringing artists together and really calling them to action, to use their talents and their very unique skill set for something greater than themselves. And I think, art for art's sake is very valuable in and of itself. But artists have such a unique voice and are in a very unique position to be able to evoke emotions in people through their craft, and everyone will react differently to specific types of art because it's so subjective, which is really what is the beauty of it. And so what we've really seen is over the course of now 6 years of running the Seawalls program, we've seen artists transform from not really being environmental advocates, not really knowing much about them, to becoming advocates and spokespeople, and we'll invite them back to projects and you see how their behavior has changed. And so that is really something that's really gratifying in terms of being able to create these advocates that go out into the world with a changed mind. And so it's very much the marriage of art and activism. And what we want to do is really bringing the oceans into the streets where the people live and where everyone, has their everyday lives.
I love that, and I'm sure folks can get a feel for these themes or topics as these beautiful images are going by. But I'm also thinking about, that part of the reason that the artists are so changed is by doing the research for some of these murals, like really learning about these issues is also a transformative process, right? So can you talk a little bit about some of the themes that you address on some of these different projects and how you choose them for different locations?
Yeah, so let me just fix the slideshow real quick because it's not looping. So let me do that real quick. But yeah, so the way we choose the locations is very much dependent on who comes to us. One of the main things with the Seawalls program is that we pride ourselves in funding them, the vast majority of them, locally. We're not big fans of, bringing in foreign money into a specific location and making something happen. We really want to foster a sense of ownership and local pride for them, and also be able to build a legacy after we leave, because at the end of the day, we will leave and we really need the local community to kind of come together and really take on what we've left behind for them. So the process is typically that someone will have heard about the program, reaches out and says, hey, I'm interested to bring this to my town, to my hometown. Sometimes it's places that are just really dear to them where they don't even live. And we kind of walk them through the process of what's involved. Typically, one of these projects takes 12 to 18 months in planning. And the vast majority of that time is spent fundraising. Some of these locations that you see, they're not very wealthy locations. So, being able to fund a project that brings 20 to 30 people together from all over the world is quite the feat. And so it does take time. But in that process of trying to find those community partners and these different stakeholders, we're really able to build these very deep and meaningful relationships that outlive a project. So yeah. And so since 2014, we've gone to 17 countries, and some of these countries we've gone back to as well. So we've hosted multiple projects in one location.
I love seeing all the picture of the different artists. I'm curious about how you find them. And I know they come from all over the world. And could you just tell us about some of them?
Yeah, for sure. So it's, in the beginning, it was us knocking on the artist doors and being like, can you please help us? And now it's very much the other way around. Of course, we still reach out to artists when, something pops up and we're really impressed. But every day now we get emails from artists from all over the world asking to get involved. And so it's a mix depending on the project, because with every project as well, in addition to us inviting specific artists from all over the world, we make it a point to kind of divide the artist group, the artist lineup, into local, regional, national, and international artists. And that also kind of provides an opportunity for creative exchange, skills exchange, and cultural exchange. And at the end of the day, we can't involve everyone. Every project, we try to cap it at about 15 to 20 artists per project, and we tend to do about 4 of these larger scale projects a year during a normal year. And so, you know, that's not that many artists we can involve, but we do kind of keep tabs on people, and we try to tap them as we go to different locations. And so, you know, if there's any artists watching tonight, mail us. There's no guarantees that you'll get to paint in one of our projects, but yeah, you know, we know you're there. And sometimes we also have these just kind of call for artists where people can get involved regardless of location, that aren't necessarily tied to painting murals.
Mm.
So yeah, you can hear in the photos, you can kind of see the diverse range of locations we've been to. This here's a photo where we took a field trip with the artists to go beluga watching. This was in Churchill, Manitoba. It's the polar bear capital of the world is what they call it. And so this, yeah, that's me standing there looking at ice fields. And I'd never seen anything like this. This is all just ice fields. And the craziest thing is that there were these ginormous Fata Morganas on the horizon. You can't see them in this photo, but it looked like they were just walls of ice the height of skyscrapers on the horizon. And it was just all an optical illusion. So that was a very interesting project because it would never get dark. We had like semi-darkness at around 4 a.m. for 30 minutes, and then it would just go back to daytime. So it's really interesting.
That's a perfect.
With this project too, every artist had to have a bear guard. Because it was right at the beginning of polar bear season. And so every artist had a bear guard sitting there with a rifle with rubber bullets in it in case a bear comes along. Because in the winter time, there's more bears in the town than people. Wow. So not very smart to have built a town right in the migration path of polar bears. But
were you able to see any bears?
No. So there were 2 bears did come to town, but not at the right time. We weren't in the right place at the right time. And they had, I think, one, so they tried to keep them away from the town. There have been some maulings in the past that were really devastating. So they try to keep them out. They actually have this facility that's a holding facility. Some like to call it the polar bear jail, but where they put them until the ice has retreated to then drop them back off on the other side so they wouldn't come back over again. But yeah, it was an unreal experience to be painting up there.
That project is where you painted on an abandoned airplane or something like that, right?
Yeah, Miss Piggy is what that airplane was called. I don't think I have a picture in this slideshow, but yes, it was an abandoned airplane that had crashed many years ago, decades ago, and we got permission to paint the airplane. It's very much like a beloved artifact out there in the wild, and so we, an artist called Pat Perry, you've met Pat. He painted it, and it was very much like an SOS message that we put on the airplane. We did the performance piece to go along with it as well.
That like reminded me that memory made me think of like all of these very unique places where you guys have, places and structures that you've painted. And I know we saw, the huge dome, and we talked about this abandoned airplane, but are there any others that aren't kind of shown here that are either your favorite or just the most unique that we can also share later for folks?
For sure. I'm gonna go and find this one, I think. So this is probably one of my favorites. It's an abandoned Navy facility. This is in Churchill as well. You can see the Northern Lights. This is after, a few months after our project, but it was just huge. You can see just how big it is, and it was just amazing to just watch the artist conquer this big surface. The message on here, "No, I'm here," refers to the fact that about 3 weeks before our project kicked off, there was a very late spring or early summer snowfall, and then all of the melt water washed away the train tracks, which are the only lifeline up to that town. And so it was very much the direct impacts of climate change affecting this community that is already very isolated and very remote and very, underserved in general. And there was some politics involved because the railway was owned by a US company, but it was on Canadian land, and the US corporation didn't want to do anything about it. And so it was very much kind of a cry for help from the community. And so that this "No, I'm here" was both a message for the people of Churchill, as well as the environment up there and the animals that call it home. But one of my other favorites is not a mural. Let me see if I can find it. This one's interesting. It's a unique structure. We painted it on the roof of the school. So this was before it got painted, and this was after. It's right in the flight path of the airplanes landing on St. Croix. And so it's on the roof of the school. And the molecules that he put within the fish here are the molecules of a specific chemical that's present in every piece of plastic. So that was the message behind this one. Let me find this other one. It's this one. There we go. So this one is probably my favorite just because it's so unique, and we haven't done anything like it since. We had invited the very renowned graffiti crew, the One Up crew. They're a graffiti crew from Germany, to participate. And we were like, well, we don't just want to create pieces of artwork that some may misconstrue as graffiti. And so we started thinking about what else we could do that would be meaningful. So we partnered with an organization that's active there. This was off of the coast of Nusa Penida in Indonesia, off the coast of Bali. And the organization Coral Guardians, they helped us create a wire frame that is suitable for coral growth. And we then planted coral onto the structure. So now it's still out there, and it's an artificial reef that people can go and swim on and take photos of. And so this is a drone shot from the sky. And that's what the One Up crew does, is that's all they do, is they write One Up. And so we were able to create the world's first underwater graffiti tag that also acts as an artificial reef. So I think that is probably the most unique one we've created today.
I love it.
So cool. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
And
I'd love to do more stuff like this, stuff that's like becomes a destination for tourists, for ecotourism to flourish in coastal areas where coral growth is slowing down, and also create something that's artistic.
So is this coral growing over time?
Mm-hmm. We haven't gotten a picture in the past year or so, but they seem to be doing fairly well, and the organization is active on that island. So I think they go out there every now and then to check on them.
It's funny. I was just going to ask about when you go around the globe and you create these activations, but then what happens after you leave, and if there's sort of some unexpected consequences, or does it inspire the community in any way? And this is such a great example of it continuing on, obviously. But I don't know if there are other, places that you would like to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. What happens after we leave is really out of our hands. We do create very long-lasting friendships, and really they become family in terms of the people that help us coordinate these projects on the ground, because we always work with local coordinators. But what happens to the movement or the murals after we leave is really up to that community. And what we've seen in many places is that it really inspires the local artist community to kind of pick up their brushes and go and paint more in the public. Especially in places where there's walls available and there is an acceptance to painting more murals. And so in locations specifically in Mexico, where we've gone back to several times, every time we go, we just have a harder time finding blank walls. And not only are artists painting just more murals, they're painting advocacy murals, which is really wonderful to see. So they've clearly gotten the message. They didn't just go around seeing murals that were just, you know, pretty pictures, but they did realize that there was a message to them, and they kind of continued that tradition, which is really wonderful to see.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And I know from being a part of the activations that sustainability and the impact of the program is really important to you guys. And as with any art project, there's kind of like real tangible material waste left, or often is left over. But you guys really go to great lengths to make the program low waste and as sustainable as possible, in such a way that it's a model for other, you know, public art initiatives around the world, whether that's you know, large scale mural festival or just like a small community art project. So I'd love to hear you talk about some of these initiatives and why it's so important to see walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, as a conservation organization, it would be really quite hypocritical if we didn't try our best to minimize our impact. And as you said, it's quite challenging. Paint in itself, there's just always waste, and there's very few paints that are suitable for mural painting that are truly zero or low impact. You know, there's lots of low VOC and zero VOC paints, but what we really try to do is kind of assess the entirety of a project and see what we can do to minimize impact, whether that's wastage of paint and materials, or the food, the types of businesses we partner with. So we have specific, you know, steps in place, a process for materials, where instead of letting artists just order whatever colors they specifically need, we ask them to please mix their own colors from primary colors. And we try to reuse those materials as much as possible, and what is left over, especially if we don't plan on coming back to a location in the foreseeable future, we'll donate those materials to a local community organization or a school. And yeah, you know, with food as well, food is such an integral part of sustainability, whether that's where the ingredients are sourced or what those ingredients are. So we always like to encourage, you know, more plant-based eating, looking at perhaps removing invasive species from a specific location. So we kind of work within those local constraints, but then you look at a place like Churchill, Manitoba, you're in the subarctic, there's really little access to fresh food. Most people there, it's very much a food desert, especially at that time when we went, because everything had to be flown in because the rail was down for several months. So you adapt, and you kind of look at what it is that you need to do to keep everyone fed without creating too much impact. And also in a situation like that, not feeding your team in such a, you know, in a much better way than the local population is able to feed themselves. So it's always really interesting. And so what we've done in terms of food wastage and so on is we travel with these reusable food containers. The artists get a survival pack that often has either bamboo utensils or like a spork in it, and reusable water bottles and so on. You know, most artists and most people have access or own some of these items already, but it's really the principle that we equip them with all the things they need to be able to, you know, work as low waste as possible.
Yeah, that's tremendous and so important. And I know it would be great to get some questions from the audience. And if anybody has any questions, they can type in the chat, or I think that's a good way.
Yeah, we have one that came in while Akira was talking from Betsy, which is, have you tried inserting a QR code or something into the murals to engage audiences that view the artwork into sustainable actions?
Yeah, great question. With all of the murals, we prepare plaques that end up going onto the murals after a project is complete, and they feature the artwork's title, as well as an artist statement, and a few facts about that specific issue and call to action steps, as well as specific, you know, links and so on where people can learn more. We have included QR codes where you will redirect them to a different site for more information as well. And we're actually trying to look at what we can do to dive even deeper using technology. So we've got some stuff in the works that hopefully we can launch next year. Yeah, that's a great question, because after we're only able to measure impact while we're there, and then once we leave, it's harder. And one of that is probably the most challenging thing about what we do is that it's art. For in most people's minds, art doesn't have a true impact. You can't measure, how your mind changes in a quantitative way. So we've got lots and lots of qualitative data, but so we're looking at what can we do to kind of dig a little deeper and find out a little more in terms of audience engagement even after we leave.
Yeah, and I remember you were talking about, like in Mexico, the theme about water. And I know that every activation, you tackle different themes. I was wondering if you could just talk about just a few of the themes that meant something to you.
Yeah, so every location has commonalities with other places as well. These issues are global, but they have very local impacts. So prior to a project, we work with the local coordinator as well as local community and environmental organizations to find out more about what those very locally specific problems are. And we kind of summarize all of those, we put them into a topic deck, and that gets sent to the artists for research. And they will kind of dig deeper, and then we ask them to choose their top 3. And from there, we look at what the favorite topics were of each artist and make sure that we've got good representation of as many of the topics as possible in any given project. And then it's really kind of up to the artist of how they're going to communicate that. And so we've had people who, for example, specialize in portraits. They'll reach out and be like, okay, I would really like to portray a local fisherman, for example, or a local kind of ocean hero. And we'll put them in touch, whether that's once they're on the ground or in advance, to find out more about their story so they can really have an inspired piece that they can create.
We're getting a couple other questions in here. One of them I can maybe co-answer with you, which is, have you worked with any schools, possibly small projects with schools to try and raise interest? So obviously you were probably working with schools before. BioSeed was a youth engagement partner. So we'd love to hear about that, and then I can chime in with what we've done together.
So certainly, inspiring that next generation is, if not the most important part, a very key component of what we want to do. And so we do try to partner with schools or some other type of youth organization for every project if we can. And in the past, I would say like 2 years, for almost every project we've painted at a school. So that really transforms the students' experience of a school day. And also engaging with both the art and science departments, or both, to get the students actually involved in the creation process or in the ideation process of the mural before it even goes up on a wall. But yeah, like how was your experience when you were painting with us in Maui?
Yeah. I mean, as you briefly mentioned, the actual whale painting was inspired by our original art winner of the BioSeed Ocean Awareness contest. And basically I painted the top whale, but the whole bottom part that's under the water was co-painted by students that were walking by after class, by art students in the art class that we worked so closely with. And it was really, really just so inspiring, because all of the pieces that students chose to include were based on conversations that we were having about what they were seeing washing up on Maui beaches, or they talked a lot about the styrofoam ban that was kind of in progress in Maui at the time. So all of those little pieces are like so specific to something that they saw as like either an overused piece of kind of single-use plastic in their communities, or something that they were personally trying to reduce within their school community. So it was kind of evolving over the week into really a school created piece about plastic impact in Maui. And then of course you and I together with the artist Ethan Estes did that marine debris printmaking class for the art students as well. So it was really, really just so powerful to be involved with the students and co-creating with them throughout that process.
Definitely, and you know, I think the teachers are so key too. Miss Sato was the most fantastic teacher, and her students were the most inspired and really just eager to learn. And I remember we were amazed at their note-taking techniques. They had these visual note-taking techniques. I was like, this is a piece of artwork. And so definitely, I think, you know, in connecting with an artist virtually, Ethan originally was supposed to be on the ground, but it just didn't happen because he got swamped with a different project, but we were still able to bring him in, and he was able to lead a workshop virtually. And this is prior to COVID, so good on us, I guess.
There's one quick question from Barbara, which I'm fascinated by too, is do you plan to repair any of the murals, or do you just allow them to sort of age as a natural process?
Good question. It really depends. Some we've actually had to paint over after several years. We would, you know, return after 5 years, and then the ones that were the most exposed to the elements, we would paint over with the permission of the artist that had his mural there before. We have repaired some in very, very, very rare instances. We've gotten tags on them, so we'll go and patch those as they appear. Although I'll add that in most cases, what we've seen is that the murals actually deter vandalism and graffiti, which is great. It's something that always comes up, especially in places where communities aren't that familiar with muralism as a medium yet. And then, you know, it really also depends on the artist. Some artists love seeing their murals change with time and seeing the impact of the elements. So yeah, and typically the property owners will, you know, they'll give us permission to paint their structure if for some reason they don't like it anymore, or they have different plans, or they're tearing down the building. That is very much out of our control. So yeah, like, great question.
We are at the 8 o'clock hour, so if folks want to stick around for 2 more minutes to hear about how you can be more involved in PangeaSeed. I know that you guys have had some virtual activations since COVID. So if you could talk about that, Akira, and of course we'll be sharing all of this information in the follow-up email for folks as well.
Yeah, so I mean, 2020 has just been so unique and challenging in many ways. And for us, that really meant pivoting all of our programming. We typically spend, I would say, 7 to 9 months out of the year traveling to different places across the world, hosting these projects in the field. And what we do best and what we love to do the most is bring people together from all over the world. And that is really the least possible thing right now. So early on, we kind of pivoted and looked at what can we do to still keep painting and activating and keeping people's spirits up while everyone is at home. And so we did this in the spring when many, many countries had lockdowns in order. And over the course of about, was it 10 days? What are the dates on there? I think it was about 10 days. We had over 800 artists from 62 countries register to paint at home. So we titled it the A Stay-at-Home Mural Festival for the Planet. It wasn't just ocean focused. We really wanted it to be open to everyone. It was also just in time for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So that was all kind of like culminating together. And it was really fantastic what people did. Some people painted their cars, others their garage doors. Others will have gone to like beg with their landlords that they can paint a wall, and they wouldn't get permission, so they came up with a different solution. Someone painted a satellite dish on their roof. It was fantastic what people came
Wow.
up with, and what it really showed us is because we get approached by artists all the time, and more often than not we have to say sorry, not this time, or this project's lineup is already full, or something that just doesn't make it possible for all of these people to get involved that are really eager. So this was an opportunity to really open up those doors and let everyone in. And it was really quite humbling to see that much support from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other project, this one, that was the Vote the Environment campaign that we just wrapped up on election day here in the US. Like you, as a 501c3 nonprofit, we are unable to endorse specific candidates, but we were able to advocate for our cause. And so we did an open call for artworks for folks to create artworks that would inspire voters to vote with the environment and its people in mind. And it was really amazing. We got submissions from all over the world again, from the Maldives, India, Argentina, all over Europe, the US, and so on. And some of them were really unique. And many of them also involved very much like local scenery and flora and fauna. And it was really quite beautiful. I hope we were able to inspire a few people to vote for the environment.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
we don't currently have any more virtual programming active right now. But based on how the world is going and things are evolving, we will likely still continue with lots of virtual programming for the foreseeable future. So as you see here, just follow us online, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be in the know when some creative opportunities come up, or any sorts of virtual events to tune into, such as this one.
Mm-hmm. And if you are inspired by what you heard tonight and you're not familiar with Bioseed's Ocean Awareness Contest, here are some of the fast facts about it. And again, I'll be including this in the follow-up email, but the program is now open through June, and it's open to students ages 11 through 18 around the world. And as Linda mentioned before, we've got basically every creative medium that you can make. So visual art, writing, film, music, poetry, spoken word, web-based media, dance, and so on. If you create it, we'll probably find a place to accept it. And students can earn cash awards up to $1,500, and all of their work becomes part of a global collection that is helping to raise awareness of our oceans. We also have a free online resource studio to support projects and exploration about water, and there's lesson plans and multimedia and articles and videos and much, much more. So definitely check that out. And we also offer $750 Educator Innovation Awards to teachers who use the 2021 Ocean Awareness Contest to teach about water in their classrooms. So again, I will send this link in the follow-up email, but you can find complete program details on our website, bioseed.org/contest. And finally, please save the date for our next Water Wednesdays webinar on December 16th. We will be speaking with South African arts educator Marissa Murray about how artists are responding to the Anthropocene and engaging with subjects like mass extinctions and pollution and the water crisis in South Africa. So that concludes our November Water Wednesday webinar. Thank you so much to Akira for sharing the PangeaSeed and Seawall's story and for taking us on that incredible tour. I've seen so many of those pieces, but they still blow my mind each time that I see them. It's just incredible. So thank you for all that you do to give our oceans a voice and for being an amazing partner in that effort as well.
Likewise, thank you so much for having us. And we look forward to many more collaborative projects and continuing to partner for our oceans and the next generation and arts, really.
Definitely. And thanks to all of you out there for joining us this evening. We so appreciated having you here, and we hope to see you at future events.